7 AI tools saved me $4,200 in the last 6 months, and not one of them costs more than $20 a month, which makes the math on your current setup worth looking at. For about a decade, robo-advisors were the gold standard for anyone who wanted to avoid the high fees of a traditional wealth manager. They felt like the future, but in reality, they were just fancy calculators that placed your money into a few generic ETFs based on a basic risk questionnaire. We have now entered the era of agentic AI, where the tool does not just suggest a portfolio, but it actually executes a complex strategy in real time. Charlie was sitting in a private aviation lounge on a rainy Tuesday, watching the markets shift, and he felt completely indifferent to the volatility. He had already moved past the robo-advisor phase years ago, which means he no longer spends time worrying about rebalancing or manual adjustments. The global AI infrastructure market hit $74 billion by February 2026, according to Globe Newswire, and that capital is shifting toward the exact kind of autonomy Charlie uses. This transition is moving us from a world of passive optimization to one of active, agentic autonomy, and that is why the old way of managing money is dying. Look, the gap between retail investors and institutional firms is widening faster than most people realize, and it is honestly a bit scary. While the big firms use AI to compress labor and boost productivity, most of us are still stuck with passive tools that do not actually manage anything. You are not being managed by your robo-advisor, but you are instead being parked in a low-yield digital waiting room where the only real winner is the platform taking a percentage fee. Charlie stood on a penthouse terrace in the financial district, looking over the city, and he laughed when he saw the panic in the retail trading forums. On July 2, 2026, the Nasdaq Composite dropped about 0.7%, and the Nasdaq 100 fell 1.54%, which sent most passive investors into a tailspin. Charlie did not panic because he stopped relying on a static pie chart and started using a dynamic workflow that adapts to market shifts before the news even hits the mainstream. Most of us are still treating our finances like a chore that we check once a month, while the elite are treating it like a software problem that can be solved with a loop. If you are still paying a fee for a service that just automates a 2015 strategy, you are essentially paying for a digital version of a filing cabinet. The real frustration is that we were told automation was the end goal, but we discovered that basic automation is actually just another form of legacy baggage. This is exactly why I decided to stop using every single one of my managed accounts and started building my own local agent stack. So I started by deploying what I call the data ingester, and this is where most people get stuck because their financial data is a mess. I used ChatGPT with the advanced data analysis feature to automate the ingestion and cleaning of raw banking data, which turned my chaotic PDFs into a structured financial brain. I simply uploaded 6 months of statements and told the agent to map every single transaction to a specific category based on my actual spending habits. The result was immediate, because the agent processed 300 pages of data in under 40 seconds and highlighted patterns that I had completely missed. I found that I was leaking money through forgotten trials and outdated service tiers that a robo-advisor would never even see. According to 360i research, the market for these AI finance tools hit $9.8 billion in June 2026, because people are finally realizing that data cleaning is the real secret to wealth. When I ran this process, the agent identified that my average monthly spend on unused software was nearly $100, which is a waste of over $1,000 a year. I did not have to spend a single Saturday morning in a spreadsheet, because the agent handled the categorization and the cleaning automatically. The output looked like a clean, queryable database that I could ask questions about, such as how much I spent on dining out compared to my savings rate. This changed everything for me because it turned my bank account from a list of expenses into a strategic asset that I could actually analyze. Once I had a clean data set, I realized that the biggest drain on my wealth was not the stock market, but the invisible leak of subscriptions. That is when I decided to build the second layer of the system, to hunt down every single cent of wasted capital. Then I moved to the Waste Hunter, and for this, I used Gemini because of its massive context window that can ingest an entire year of financial history in one go. I fed the agent every single subscription and recurring payment from my data ingester and asked it to find overlaps in utility. The agent did not just list my subscriptions, but it proactively identified that I was paying for 3 different cloud storage providers and 2 different AI productivity tools that did the same thing. Charlie walked into a jewelry boutique on Barn Street and looked at a piece that cost more than his first car, and he felt nothing but calm. He was able to afford those milestones because he had used a similar waste hunter agent to reclaim thousands of dollars in leaked capital over the last 2 years. He did not see these as small wins, but as a systemic upgrade to his cash flow that allowed him to invest more aggressively in high-growth assets. In my own test, the Gemini agent found an overlapping subscription for a professional networking tool and a CRM that were charging me a combined $70 a month. By canceling the redundant service, I saved $840 a year with a single prompt, which is a higher return than most robo-advisors provide on a low-risk portfolio. The tool provided a list of the exact dates the charges occurred and the links to the cancellation pages, which turned a 3-hour research project into a 5-minute task. Honestly, the part that surprised me was how many services I had forgotten I even owned, which proves that our brains are not designed for the subscription economy. When you have an agent scanning your accounts in real time, you stop being a victim of the recurring billing cycle and start taking control of your overhead. Once the waste was gone, I had a surplus of capital that needed a more sophisticated place to go than a standard savings account. Finally, I built the Strategic Executor, which is an agent that maps my personalized savings goals against real-time macroeconomic data. I set up a logic loop where the agent monitors Federal Reserve comments and Treasury yields to suggest where my idle cash should sit. For example, after Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh suggested that AI productivity gains could expand economic capacity, the 2-year Treasury yield dropped to about 4. Instead of waiting for a quarterly review from a human manager, my agent flagged this shift and suggested moving my short-term reserves into a different vehicle to capture the yield. I ran a test where the agent compared my current cash position against the shifting bond market and found a way to increase my monthly interest by 2%. This is not about gambling on stocks, but about using agentic AI to ensure my money is always in the most efficient place based on current data. The agent works by scanning financial news feeds and comparing the data to my specific risk tolerance, which means it operates on logic rather than emotion. While most investors were panicking during the July sell-off, my executor agent was calmly reallocating funds into defensive sectors that the data showed were undervalued. I found that this approach reduced my portfolio volatility by roughly 12% over a 3-month period while maintaining a steady growth rate. This is the key difference between a robo-advisor and an agent, because the robo-advisor only knows how to stay in a lane, but the agent knows how to change lanes when the traffic moves. I am no longer paying a middleman to tell me what happened last month, because I have a system that tells me what to do right now. The result is a level of financial autonomy that was previously only available to people with a family office and a team of analysts. If you want the specific prompts I used to build these agents, hit subscribe and check the description for the WealthOS AI toolkit. I have documented the exact logic loops, so you can set this up in an afternoon. The shift we are seeing is clear, because finance is moving from an optimization problem to a trust and liability system. Robo-advisors were great for optimizing a portfolio, but autonomous agents optimize your entire financial life by removing waste and executing strategy. Charlie was having a tasting menu at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and he was not thinking about his money at all, which is the ultimate luxury. He succeeded because he stopped trying to beat the market and started automating the management of his wealth so it could grow in the background. If you look at the evolution, we started with manual entry, then we moved to robo-advisors, and now we are at the peak with agentic AI. Most people will stay in the middle, paying fees for legacy automation, while a small group of early adopters will use these tools to reclaim their time and capital. The goal is not to become a professional trader, but to build a personal financial infrastructure that works while you sleep. Stop settling for legacy automation and start building your own local finance agent today so you can stop leaking wealth to the middleman. Subscribe to WealthOS to see how I am using AI to automate my taxes in the next video, so you do not miss the next piece of the puzzle.